Call the advisory Washington, I forgot which meeting I'm at. Call the Westfield Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission order for September 8th, 2020. Will the staff please note the presence of quorum?
Ms. Berkman? Ms. Berkman?
Here.
Mr. Graham?
Present.
Mr. Horke?
Here.
Mr. Johns?
Here.
Dr. Kelleher? Dr. Kelleher? Mr. Maui?
Here.
Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz?
Here.
Ms. Spoljaric?
Here.
We'll try Dr. Kelleher one more time. Okay, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Next up is consideration for approval of minutes from August 17th, 2020. Having had opportunity to review those minutes, are there any additions, corrections, or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the minutes of August 17th, 2020 APC meeting into the record as written.
Second.
I have a motion made by Mr. Horke, seconded by Ms. Spoljaric to approve the minutes of August 17th, 2020 as written. Will the staff please call the roll?
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes, I'm here now.
Perfect. Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Spoljaric?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Let the record show that Dr. Kelleher joined the meeting at 7:02 p.m. Next up are the rules and procedures for tonight's meeting. Would the staff please review those for us?
Yes. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, as declared by the Governor of Indiana, the format and conduct of the meeting has been modified to comply with executive orders regarding the conduct of public meetings, public hearings, and public gatherings. Relevant portions of the Indiana Open Door Law have been amended or suspended during the pendency of this emergency. For our items that do require a public hearing tonight, the meeting will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition. The petitioner will then be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The president will open a public hearing. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. The public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard and all emails received during the meeting have been provided to Plan Commission members. The petitioner will then have a chance to respond to comments, and the Plan Commission will follow with any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. For our non-public hearing items this evening, the department will summarize the petition and highlight any changes or modifications since the item was last before the Plan Commission. The department will also describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken by the Plan Commission. The petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present any changes, and the Plan Commission will then act upon the petition. For our general rules of conduct this evening, we ask that you please not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence all your devices at this time, and again, if you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person this evening and wish to speak in regards to a petition that is scheduled for a public hearing, please fill out a yellow card. Once the public hearing is opened by the president, then please provide us your yellow card as you approach the podium. If you are not attending in person, comments regarding the petition should be emailed to planners@westfield.in.gov with the petition name or number included in the subject line. Those comments will be forwarded on to Plan Commission members and the petitioner. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone for the record, and we ask that you please not repeat previously stated comments. Your presentation will be timed, and you will be advised when there's approximately 30 seconds remaining. We would also like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone, and if you are on the call, please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Just a general announcement, if anyone from the public is here for Bridgewater PUD Amendment Culvers or North Point 2 PUD, those items have been continued to a future meeting. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. It contains 2 items, 2008 DDP-18 Urban Vines and 2008-DDP-21 JACM Building Addition. I will entertain a motion on the consent agenda at this time.
Move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I'll second that.
Have a motion made by Mr. Horkay, seconded by Mr. Maui to approve the consent agenda. Will the staff please call the roll?
Ms. Berkman? Ms. Berkman? Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Next item of business is 2006-PUD-05, Urban Vines PUD Amendment 1.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Pam Howard from the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for your recommendation, we do have the First Amendment to the Urban Vines PUD. This site is located on the south side of 161st Street, west of Oak Ridge Road, and is currently zoned the Urban Vines PUD and was zoned that way approximately a year ago in 2019. The one modification this PUD amendment is looking to make would be to remove the outdoor restroom requirement that's currently written in that PUD and replace it with an indoor restroom requirement, extending the time allotment by 1 year. This item did receive a public hearing at the June 3rd Plan Commission meeting, and as I said, is eligible for your recommendation this evening. I do have Matt Pleasant on behalf of the petitioner here to make a presentation, after which both he and I are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Members of the commission. Here, let me get this closer. Hopefully everybody at home can hear me. Matt Pleasant of Pleasant Cities LLC, located at 5821 Julian Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana, representing Noah Heron of Heron Holdings LLC, owner and operator of Urban Vines Winery and Urban Farmers Seeds in Westfield. First, I want to thank you all for considering this proposal this evening. As you may know, a variance of use was granted to Mr. Heron to allow wine processing at the original Hoosier Hills location. This allows Urban Vines to transfer the processing operations to a more feasible location away from 161st Street. Moving the processing operations to the Hoosier Hills location allows ample space to add 2 restroom stalls inside of the building rather than outside. Mr. Heron intends to have the processing facilities installed at the Hoosier Hills location by spring of 2021, so that the renovations can begin at Urban Vines. The reason for the September completion date that was added to the PUD is a direct result of the anticipated construction timelines for both Hoosier Hills wine processing renovations that would be required, as well as the Urban Vines restrooms itself. Additionally, I know there was a concern earlier about compliance with the landscape plan that was originally approved from the first PUD. I was told by staff that they performed an on-site inspection and deemed the Urban Vines in compliance with the approved landscape plan. And for that, I'd like to thank you for your time this evening. Noah Heron and I are both here for any clarifying questions. Otherwise, we respectfully request a recommendation to the City Council this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pleasant. Since we have a couple of people who are calling in, commissioners, I'll go over that actually after the public hearing. I'm going to handle that. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself. We have a couple of commissioners here who are not with us. They're virtual. So I'm going to call on them to go ahead and speak. First is Dr. Kelleher. Do you have any questions or comments?
I have some, oh, there's an echo, so I have some comments. This project has been delayed many times. We have given variances that haven't been complied with. We have bent over backwards to try to make this work. The restrooms were granted back about 8 or 9 months ago to be built outside. and that hasn't happened. Now, there's another reason to delay them because there's going to be another project, Hoosier Hills, which may or may not be on a timeline that works for what's presented here. So we have a situation where there are 3 outdoor porta potties, which have been there for at least, I don't know, 8 or 9 months or more. I'm not sure that's even permitted because in our ordinance, I believe porta potties are used as a temporary use, a few days or up to a week if there is an event. So I believe that these are out of compliance. They've been there for much longer than that. And I'm not inclined to approve this, to have the bathrooms put inside sometime a year from now. I think Mr. Herron needs to remedy his issue now, not delay it another 8 or 9 months. I think the porta potties, as I say, are not legal this long. Number 2, a health hazard with COVID, unless they are being locked. And every time they are used, an employee from Urban Vines goes out there and sprays them down. So I would like Mr. Herron to figure out another alternative, whether he builds some outdoor restrooms as he had planned, because we're not guaranteed that the Hoosier Hills project will meet the timeline that he's presented, or he asks the church next door if he can use their restrooms. Or as someone said, in a pinch, you can use a Pringles can. But I'm not inclined to continue this any longer. I would be happy to give Mr. Herron a chance to delay this and try to figure out another solution. But I personally couldn't recommend a positive vote for this.
Thank you, Dr. Kelleher. Is that the extent of your comments?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Berkman, any questions or comments?
No, thanks, Randy.
Okay, thank you. The other commissioners are physically here, so I'm not going to call you by name. Anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Pleasant or for Mr. Herron?
I do have one question, at least one question. The, excuse me, your site plan still shows a significant chunk of the building being used for processing, yet you're contemplating moving that out to the other site. So how's the building going to be used differently, and why do we have this site plan if you pretty much know that's going elsewhere? Or not site plan, but floor plan.
Noah Herron, 158 Paragon Lane, Westfield, Indiana. We still make brew beer on the facility, so we'll increase the size of our brewing operation and our food, like our pizzas and stuff like that. So it'll still take up the same space back there. It's just the wine tanks that we're starting to purchase and whatnot are much bigger than what can handle back there.
Thank you.
I agree with everything that Dr. Kelleher said, and I would add to that I'm also disappointed that it's my understanding that as of today, a building permit has still yet to be issued for the enclosed patio that's been done for some time.
Yes, from a staff's perspective, they cannot get a permit for that until that development plan that you approved on the consent agenda was approved. So as part of that, there was a condition that they're required to apply for that permit within 2 weeks. So that should be taken care of very soon.
What is the reason for, it seems like an awfully long period of time to delay the construction of those restrooms till a year from now, over a year from now? What is the thinking?
With the purchase of the Hoosier Hills site that we presented earlier, and then now with the grant of variance from a month ago, I believe, from the Board of Zoning Appeals, now Mr. Herron has the opportunity to engage in construction, pull the permits, do the architecture, the architects, the engineers, everybody to make sure everything's okay. Start doing construction, and hopefully it's on the construction timeline to be able to do those inside renovations. Currently today in the location at Urban Vines, Pam, or if you were to go to the next page is actually the site for the interior. It is in the ordinance. So I know that those at home can't see what I'm about to show, but you can see where Kevin has zoomed in. It's right, I kind of see right here is the additional restrooms. Today is where Noah's office is located today. That office will be expanded into the property. So by the Hoosier Hills, he'll also move his office and administrative services all up at Hoosier Hills to get those out of the way. Once the processing facilities have been moved from the wine, the interior of Urban Vines once again will be pulled just like I was talking about at Hoosier Hills, and then he'll be able to make those improvements here, both to adjust the processing area, the kitchen, and where the restroom stalls. So we're just trying to give ourselves a little bit of wiggle because, as you know, construction takes a little longer than you normally anticipate. You're hoping for something that goes 2 months and it takes up 4 or 5 months at a time. So it's really just trying to, September is very aggressive for a timeline like this, since you're waiting on one to be completed before you start the other one and move everything over. But Mr. Herron's willing to push that envelope and get it going.
It is troubling to me that we've now for several years had porta potties in a business that's doing impeccable business, and that's really good for Noah, very happy for him. But I would never in good conscience approve a project knowing we would have those kind of crowds and have porta potties outside. And now, especially in today's day and age, that's troubling to me. And then to have them be temporary, portalettes instead of an outdoor build at the very least. Obviously indoor is best, but to again wait another year or more, this was supposed to be done September 1st, something. And again, here we are. So that's a hard pill to swallow.
If I may, Counselor, a year ago, when Mr. Herron came through with this PUD request, the first PUD coming through, Hoosier Hills was not on the table. Hoosier Hills was not even an option or a thought of concept at the time. Now that Hoosier Hills, previously in the beginning, we filed in May, and our first hearing was in June, if I remember correctly. There was a new concept that said there was a new opportunity for Mr. Herron to move out some operations. To make it more feasible for his customers to go inside instead of having to go outside for those additional bathroom spaces. So I believe that this is more beneficial in the long term by having people go into inside instead of having the outdoor venues.
Unfortunately, the track record has been keep getting past deadlines and they're not met. And so therein lies the concern. Just one of the concerns. But yet another summer of porta potties, sitting outside is not good.
I echo what Councilperson Spaltjeric has said, and it should come to no surprise to you, Noah, or to you, Matt, that how I feel about this. I tried to make it clear before this meeting. I just don't have faith that we're going to be here 11 months from now, and we're going to be looking at another new project, and there's another reason why we're not going to do what we said we were going to do. And yet again, if we send this forward and it's approved by council, it in part cleans up some things that were done incorrectly once again, like the last time. So that's what I have to say about that. I think hopefully both of you knew that before you walked in here, but for the public record, I wanted to state that. That's all I have to say about that. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will make a motion to send.
Mr. Graham, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Speaking real quick with Mr. Herron, he is willing to add a commitment, or at least add to the PUD to remove those porta potties and not allow the porta potties currently existing today. No more shall they be on the property moving forward, and he can have those removed fairly soon. If that is, if the porta potties is the main issue right now, from that is withholding a recommendation tonight, we're committed to removing those.
That's not my issue. My issue is that you guys are gonna have the permanent restrooms built by September of 2020, and now you're saying 2021. And for me, that's unacceptable. And removing the porta potties doesn't, they should be removed. And there should be, I'm a little wondering why that we haven't done some type of enforcement on that. But, you know, I don't know the legality of that. I'm not gonna delve into it. But that doesn't change my position on this. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Do you have anything else, Mr. Pleasant?
Not unless there's a way that I can make you happy. Otherwise, I think we understand. We see
I'm
each
sorry?
other. We see each other.
Okay.
We understand.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question? So you would remove the porta potties tomorrow, right? Just for instance, so then where does the waste go?
So we don't allow people into our building right now, the public or anybody right now. So that's why we've kept them out this long, because we take them out in the winter time, and then we brought them back because we weren't gonna have anybody in our building at all, so that we brought them out there. So that's the whole reason, because the outdoor restrooms were gonna have to be shut off in the winter time. So basically, we would have only one restroom still inside in the winter time, and we would only have these outdoor facilities seasonally. So I think it's a better fit to bring these 2 extra restrooms inside, have them inside year round instead of having to turn them off and on. So the whole reasoning behind this was to be able to do that. So I think the restrooms inside is a better deal, and it works better for everybody. But with COVID and not allowing people in, that's why we've kind of had them sitting there, and we moved them to the side, hopefully made them look better. But we have a wash station, and the 3 urinal, or in the 3 porta potties outside right now. And that's just the way we've done it. I mean, I was hoping people would be lenient with us this year with COVID and everything going on, trying to support us, and I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
Well, I'd say, I mean, we have been very lenient with you and trying to get you up to speed, and, I mean, just with a whole lot of things. I think we've been very good at working with you, but again,
yeah.
Here we are.
And we were here in May, and we talked about this, and if I would have known that you guys, I mean, if it was gonna be a no matter what, the way we were going, I probably would have already had them built, so that way we met the timeline. Because, I mean, from my understanding, I mean, the patio is the only thing that we've ever really been out of variance with, are the patio and the stage. So, I'm sorry. I mean, it's with COVID, we're trying to do the best we can. I could possibly move up the dates of getting them built inside and find an office somewhere else, work from home or whatnot, but I mean, that's just the timeline that I'm on right now, and being able to do that. And that's just kind of how everything's kind of fallen together. I've known about this project and Hoosier Hills and all this. We've had this discussion before, and I believe we were kind of like, well, let's wait and see what Hoosier Hills is doing. And we saw the variance went through, and now we're back to do this, and now we're kind of getting pushed on that we should have already had it done. But I mean, we were having this conversation several months ago about how we were going to try to go forward with it, and that's just kind of where we're at now. So.
Any other discussion? Anything else, Mr. Pleasant? No?
No, sir.
Yeah. There is no further discussion. I will make a motion to send 2006-PUD-05 Urban Vines PUD Amendment 1 to the City Council with a negative recommendation.
I'll second that.
Have a motion made by Randall Graham, seconded by Mr. Maui, to send 2006-PUD-05 Urban Vines PUD Amendment 1 to the City Council with a negative recommendation. Before Ms. Howard calls the roll, I ask the commissioners only respond with yes or no. Yes is in favor of the negative recommendation. No is against. Will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes?
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Spiljerik?
Yes.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Howard.
Thank you.
The following two items on the agenda this evening both require a public hearing. So we'll have the presentation, we will have the public hearing, then we will have a chance for the commissioners to respond and ask questions, and then we will let the petitioner respond if they choose to do so. The next item up on the agenda is 2009-PUD-10, Osborne Trails PUD Amendment 2. Before you proceed with that, I'm going to need someone to run the clock for me for the public hearing. Have you guys got that over there? Okay, good to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. President, members of the commission. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for a public hearing, we do have the second amendment to the Osborne Trails PUD. This site is located at the northeast corner of 191st Street and Horton Road in the existing Osborne Trails PUD. Was added to that PUD in 2017. This PUD amendment would accommodate a new distillery, West Fork Whiskey, and does modify some of the architectural and permitted use standards to accommodate this use. This item was introduced at the August 10th council meeting, and a virtual neighbor meeting was held on September 1st. The summary of that is included as an exhibit to the agenda. Again, this item is scheduled for a public hearing this evening. It was properly noticed and advertised. I do have Russell Brown here on behalf of the petitioner to make a presentation, after which both he and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howard.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the commission. For the record, Russell Brown, attorney with the law firm of Clarkman, Scott and Brown, 320 North 40th Street, 1100 in Indianapolis. Is a guy who does, he's in a normal situation 4 or 5 times a month.
Pam? This is Jenny. I can barely
sorry.
hear him. I don't know if anybody else can.
Sorry, Dr. Kelleher, I didn't have the mic on. I apologize. Russell Brown.
Thank you.
For the record. So it's nice to be in front of people again instead of just a computer screen. So I appreciate the chance to be here tonight. With me tonight, Blake Jones with West Fork Whiskey, who will make a presentation about West Fork, who they are, and what they envision going at this corner. Also, we have other members of the development team on the phone available as well if you have questions. We've called this project HQ2, which is a partnership between West Fork and Holiday Properties. And as Pam mentioned, this is an amendment to the Osborne Trails to allow for a new $10 million corporate headquarters on these 25 acres at this northeast corner of 191st and Horton Road. As shown on the site plan, you would have access to both 191st Street and Horton Road upon approval of this project. This amendment does add new uses to the Osborne Trail permitted uses section, including agritourism and light industry, as well as accessory uses. Initially, this would have an approximately 33,000 square foot building, which would have production, aging, tasting, a restaurant use, education space, as well as event space located on the site. There would be additional expansion opportunities on site. Those expansion opportunities would largely revolve around additional aging production or distribution uses associated with West Fork's proposed use here. Their goal is to go here and to grow here, as I've talked about in neighborhood meetings. We have made those edits to the ordinance to allow for the uses, the agricultural and agritourism and distillery uses. We have added exemptions to the overall maximum size for a single building as well as an aggregate, but those are tied specifically to either agritourism or distillery. They are limited to those being above and beyond the LB limitations. This does add architectural standards to allow for the construction of the building, which we've shown in our character exhibit, which was included in the press releases for this location. We believe these are consistent with and a variety of other similar distillery uses, both regionally and nationally, that are West Fork's friends and competitors. We did hold a neighborhood meeting last Tuesday, and as Pam mentioned, there was, I know the counselors were on that call as well as a couple of neighbors, but not many questions came up during that meeting. I haven't received any calls or communication related to this after public notice went out. I'm going to ask Blake to come forward to give an overview of how this parcel and this proposal here, both what West Fork is and how they envision this being the growth of their future, for this future headquarters here in your community. So I'll have Blake come up, and then he and I will both be available for questions.
Can everybody hear me okay? Thank you all so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. We're extremely excited about the possibility of joining the Westfield community. We've been looking for a home that we can grow and commit to for a long term, for well over a year, as we've been growing our company. And so I just want to say thank you for at least contemplating our ability and the approval to come here and grow here, and certainly invest every penny I've ever made here in this project. So I do really appreciate that. So, you know, one thing I wanted to really make clear tonight was the fact that, as Russell has said, that we have been looking for a home for well over a year in what we're doing. And so West Fork Whiskey at its heart is an Indiana whiskey distillery. And one thing that we do is we want to pay homage to Indiana's rich distilling heritage and Hoosier agriculture as we grow our company. And so with that, we needed land and space. So when we were founded originally in 2014, for those of you who may or may not know, we cashed our 401ks out, guaranteed some loans, maxed out some credit cards, and grew from there. And last year we sold more whiskey than any other Indiana-based producer, besides a company no one probably knows about, which is the largest contract manufacturer of whiskey in the world. So we've grown substantially over the last several years. And this project for us, as we approached Russell and Holiday Property Group to partner with us, it was, again, to give us a home in a community, to really help change the perception of what we do and who Hoosier whiskey, or what Hoosier whiskey is, not just today, but in the future. And so with that, we wanted to find a space that allowed for, as Russell mentioned, expansion in the future. So some things about our business that I think are very important as we contemplate the changes here before us is that not only is this an educational hub in our mind for whiskey in the Hoosier State, but it's also a place that we can continue to invest and put back whiskey for years and years to come. The unique thing about whiskey is it's like watching paint dry, right? So you put it back in a barrel and then you watch for years and years and years. So with that, you need space. We're originally founded in Indianapolis, Indiana. We've been there again for well over 4 years. It has not allowed us the flexibility and the space to grow. And so when you look at the diagram, basically the entire right half of the building, not including the middle part there, which is our initial aging warehouse, is for restaurant, for retail, for tours, for things of that nature. And so we really wanted to be family friendly with how we approach this. But then the entire left side of the building, and then in that middle kind of column there, is all for whiskey production. It gives us the ability and the flexibility to be competitive, not just from a regional but national standpoint, as we not only manufacture, we process, we warehouse, and we age on a day-to-day basis. So at the heart of what we do, we are agritourism in that we use a large amount of Indiana grain to produce whiskey at scale. And so again, to do that, you need space. And so that's the reason why you see hopefully a site that the community will adopt, but also we can grow for many years to come. And it's something that not only we want to be educational focused in what we do, but also again to give us the ability to grow for a long period of time. So I really appreciate you allowing me to speak and at least show my face. One thing, we've kept this under wraps for, again, over a year, but we were really excited to make it public a few weeks ago and kind of show our face and show our intent. And I hope that what we're trying to build here is something acceptable to you. And with that, I'll open it up for questions for both myself and for Russell.
Thank you. This item does require a public hearing this evening. I will open the public hearing on 2009 PUD-10 Osborne Trails PUD Amendment 2 at 7:36 p.m. Do we have any cards, Ms. Howard?
We do not, but we ask that people bring them up during the hearing.
Okay. So we will wait, see if anyone calls in. Yes. No emails, nothing from the outside, Ms. Howard?
Correct, no emails.
Okay. I will close the public hearing at 7:38 p.m. So to bounce it around a little bit, I will let the commissioners who are physically here first. Do any of you have any questions or comments?
Actually, most of my comments are going to be of the more technical variety, so I'll just submit those in writing.
So my main concern with this was just looking at the character exhibits, knowing the architecture from around the area, and just up the road there's a grain silo, and seeing the comparisons between this and what's below that was provided before. My main concern is, that doesn't necessarily look like that. I personally believe that type of style would be much more fitting for that area, given the barns we have out in that direction, the other agricultural fitting aesthetics we have out there. That'd just be a beautiful building out that way, especially for agritourism, and it'd be a landmark. Kind of reminding me of Chip and Joanna down in Texas. So I think that would be awesome. I think that what you guys have come up with conceptually is definitely much more adherent to the building type at Grand Park, as opposed to what has been out there for years and years. So that's just my main concern, as well as like any project, the traffic in the future. Kevin, were you able to hear the timeline for the roundabout, or?
yeah, I don't have an answer to that question. I'm still working on it. As soon as we find out, we'll let you know.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, in all the concepts we have of this area, we have the roundabout, which again would be awesome for when that is complete, just given what traffic you guys will bring. I would call it positive traffic, just again because of bringing people into Westfield that wouldn't normally be here, but it'll help out with Grant Park, it'll help out with the new houses going in there. So that's just one concern with traffic. But my main thing, I love your guys' purpose being out here. I love your mission statement with education, everything of the sort. My main philosophy, just because I've lived in this area my entire life, is just kind of the aesthetics of the building and what that kind of entails. So that's it for me.
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners who are physically here at the meeting? I have one brief comment, and I don't want to dwell on what Mr. McCarty said, but I mean, obviously the south elevation is front of the building. Looking at the other elevations, I mean, even with the outside seating and the doors raised up, it kind of breaks the building up a little bit, but it's a bit lackluster. The west and north, I don't know, it does not have any features to it that to me, other than the stripes and the windows up at the top, like on the west elevation, that breaks up the giant wall whatsoever. So just my comments. I'll go to Ms. Berkman. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Randy, I do. Can everybody hear me okay? Hello?
Yes. Yes,
You can hear
we
me?
can.
Okay,
Yes.
Fabulous, fabulous. I have a couple of comments. First off, I think this is really an exciting project for Westfield, and so I just want to thank the petitioner for thinking of Westfield. My concerns kind of go with the PUD, because this isn't just asking us to do kind of this cool agritourism project. There's also this addition of the light industrial, which is extremely broad on what else can go on this parcel. And it's also very broad to just encompass all of agritourism on that parcel without us really understanding what that might be as well, because as we kind of had a project about a month ago, it's a pretty broad spectrum of what can happen there. And there's also event planning talked about in the PUD, and I'm not sure that there's specifics on how big the tents would be, how the parking would work for that. So there's just some details within this PUD, I guess, or lack of details that are concerning me. And there was also a comment in the narrative on if this distillery doesn't work out, you know, this light industrial zoning will be what's on the entire parcel. And this is a key location across the street from Grant Park. So having an agritourism restaurant with patio seating outside that we can attract our visitors over there to spend money is fabulous. But a light industrial factory across the street would not be something for our teams and people to go to. So these are some of my concerns with the big idea of the distillery versus what's really in writing in this PUD and what can happen in the future. And Randy, I'll put all that in writing, but that's just a quick summary tonight.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Kelleher, questions or comments? Dr. Kelleher, questions or comments?
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm having some technical problems. I agree with what Kristen said. when I look through the definitions of light industry, manufacture of glass and glass products, finished leather goods, I think that list needs to be narrowed down a lot. I love the idea of the brewery, and I think of Sierra Nevada Brewing in Asheville, and I'm sure the petitioner is familiar with that facility, which is quite amazing with rain gardens and outdoor spaces and tours through the brewery and distillery. So I'm hoping that we can get this to be nailed down to get something more like that, and amenities around it or businesses around it that fit in more than a lot of them that are in light industry. I also have a question about agritourism. Certainly Sierra Nevada Brewing has an amazing agritourism facility, and you have this outdoor amenity area, which I'm very curious, will that be light manufacturing, or is that indeed going to be the outdoor amenities and part of an agritourism? I also, like Mr. McCarty's comments, I think that the building presented looks more like industrial, and I think in this area, something that was much more of a statement of our Hoosier heritage and lifestyle would be more appropriate. But I'll write all these down and try to get them in.
Thank you, Dr. Kelleher. Mr. Brown, would you or the petitioner care to respond to any of those comments?
I can talk to some of, I'm not the architect, so I won't talk about architecture and some of those changes.
Can you turn your mic on, please?
I'm not the architect, so I'll take those back and have those, we can have those conversations as a development team as well. And obviously we'll work with staff on the roundabout construction. Obviously, as shown, the site plan contemplates, connecting to where right-of-way exists, and so obviously if that changes over time, that would show on the site plan as well. As it relates to the light industry question of why that's included, couple points on that. One is, as Blake discussed, the goal here is to grow and expand, and as you look through what agritourism is versus what light industry is, there very well will come a time, if this is successful, that there will be more production space and more storage space and more distribution space on site than there will be agritourism related uses. I told Blake I wouldn't talk about it, but I drink a lot of bourbon. I'm not afraid to say that in public, but I've been to a lot of distilleries recently, and storage is a lion's share of their land use. When you have things that age between 4 and 7 years or longer, you can't distribute, you can't store those things any short term, or they're not inconspicuous in 55-gallon drums. They do take up a lot of space, and the goal here is to have that type of ability here. But you have buildings that become part of what you do. Go to the Maker's Mark in Kentucky, and their storage facilities are part of their tour. And you see how the barrels are stored and aged and how they're transitioned, and those become part of what goes on the property. But our concern is that when we get to the second building or the third building for storage, the rick house, suddenly is there going to be an interpretation that we're now crossed over from an agritourism use into an light industrial use. So there's an abundance of caution from the lawyer on that question. There's also what happens if there's a second generation use that's necessary here for this building. As mentioned, it's a 33,000 square foot building, not really prone to reuse as a light local business use. So those were some of the things that we were trying to work through. We certainly can look at those definitions and attempt to narrow them and work with staff or other members of the commission on trying to find common ground on what can be eliminated. There's no intention to have a backdoor request to have a 30,000 square foot taxidermy location here. This isn't, the goal here is to have appropriate uses and hopefully never necessary, but if a secondary use became necessary. So we can work with those on those issues. On event space, yeah, there is proposed to be event opportunities, accessory event opportunities that could combine indoor and outdoor. Those could be things that include, corporate retreat, that could include, cocktail reception or something like that. You could have small-scale weddings there. You could have those things. The parking lot is sized for that. You have indoor improvements that lend themselves to that. So that is included in the concept. Is that going to be the overall prime use of this location? No. That's why it's listed as accessory use. It would be something in addition to the production, aging, and distribution of Indiana-made bourbon. So we will work with staff and with other members. We'll look forward to the comments received in writing and work forward to try to work through those issues before this comes back to you in a month.
Thank you. Any additional questions, comments from commissioners sitting here or my two online?
Randy?
Yes.
I'd like to address Mr. Brown. I understand storage, and Sierra Nevada Brewery has a whole section for that. But light industry, which would include storage and transfer of household goods, storm doors, windows, awnings, manufacture and assembly of all those things, is just not something that I think we would want to see here. The question of a secondary use in case this doesn't succeed, I'm not sure I want to rezone this property so that if you don't succeed or there's a secondary use, you're prepared for that. I would just as soon have you come back in with a plan for what that secondary use might be and amend your PUD. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the commissioners? And I'll give Mr. Brown another opportunity to speak.
Yeah, I got
Randy, this is Kristen. I just want to second everything Dr. Kelleher just said. I mean, some of these uses on this light industrial, one is you can make caskets. There's just a lot of uses that I don't think I'm comfortable with. And what he described, I'm absolutely comfortable with. It goes with the business. It's these other things that are just not related in any way to the distillery. So I won't repeat everything Dr. Kelleher said, but I share her concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maui?
I respect Ms. Berkman and Dr. Kelleher's concern about the variety of uses, and it sounds like maybe you can tighten up the language. I hear your response that maybe that can be tweaked a little bit, but I specifically wanted to comment to what you said, Mr. Brown. It sounds like you've done a great job to try to include everything that you can foresee in the business model, and I wanted to say I appreciate that we're not going to be back here tweaking and changing as you grow and expand. It's wonderful that you plan to put down roots here and grow the business here, and you're accommodating that, and I think that's wonderful to try to nail it in the first shot the best you can.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Mr. Brown, final word?
I don't have anything further.
Okay.
We'll work through this and look forward to being back here next month.
Very good. And I also am very excited about the project. I think it'll be wildly successful in that location with this type of a business. Thanks. All right, moving on to our last item on the agenda this evening. It is 2009 PUD-11 Woods Robinson Briggs PUD.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is a change of zoning proposed for approximately 157 acres on the north side of 191st Street, west of Tomlinson Road, generally near the intersection of 191st Street and Grand Park Boulevard. The proposal is to rezone the subject property from AGSF1, Agricultural Single Family Rural, to the Woods Robinson Briggs PUD, which would be a mix of single family, multifamily, commercial, and institutional uses. The real estate is proposed to be divided into 6 districts. District 1, the commercial district, which would abut 191st Street. District 2, a suburban rental community district, which is defined within the PUD. District 3, which is a single-family small lot residential, the northern portion, while District 4 is also single-family small lot, however, it's defined as the south portion. District 5, which is a park and trailhead district, and District 6, which is the townhome district. The property is not in a TIF district and does fall in the area identified in the Family Sports Capital Addendum 2 of the comprehensive plan. This item has been properly noticed and advertised. The department has received 1 public comment received this evening, which I believe has been forwarded to you. The petitioner held a neighborhood meeting on August 18th, for which there were no public attendees who were not owners or representatives of subject property or potential investors. Birch Dalton with Edge Rock Development is present this evening to give a brief presentation, after which he will be available for questions, and I will be available for questions of the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Good evening. I'm Birch Dalton, Edge Rock Development, 555 East Main Street, Westfield, Indiana. And I appreciate this opportunity to make our presentation. Along with me is the president of David Weekley, Indiana, Mike Lukey, who will be available to answer questions on the residential side. We have users here tonight with Cornerstone Church. We have Pastor Welch here and Chad Hankerson. And we have the land sellers here with the Briggs family, and then online we have the Woods family and the Robinson family. So I'd like to start out and kind of review the concept plan, if you could switch to it, and kind of describe each area, and then tell you some of the work we've done. We start with the commercial. We're looking at doing a very large athletic project based on tennis and pickleball. And the pickleball came out of a group from the Jewish Community Center who I've been working with. And they got several members that have been pushing for a championship level pickleball indoor court. And I've been looking at doing an indoor tennis facility, not necessarily for the APC, but more for juniors. And so we think it's a perfect relationship with Grand Park is to add those courts. Along with that, the Sport-A-Good Tech Center is an idea that came out of William Knox and Kai Chuck as I kind of reviewed this with them, and they'd like to have an opportunity to maybe create an incubator for sporting goods and sports-related activities. So that side of the commercial was set aside for that. And then you'll see a multitude of buildings, which won't all happen at once, coming off of Grand Park Boulevard. And so the church would be in GB over on the east side along the Monon, not abutting the 191st Street. And they've, when you look at their exhibits, have spent quite a lot of time in doing layouts and planning, both for the initial building and future family life center, which I think would be a great asset for this area of Westfield. The Woods family, in over a year and a half of negotiations, were very adamant about the high quality use, what they're going to leave as a legacy. And so the park will be set aside as either conservatory and or something given to the city, subject to negotiations. But the Woods family has a great affinity to leave something very special there as a trailhead. Not necessarily something with a bunch of indoor plumbing or parking, but more so nature, trail-oriented, to allow people to come up and down the Monon and then, come to the retail through there or just enjoy some tranquility. On the housing side, going to the small lot David Weekley project right off the bat, Councilor Edwards, in our initial discussion, was very adamant about the type of housing, the price of the housing, and so forth. So he visited the David Weekley project that's anticipated to go in here, and that's like Suffolk behind the Kroger, which you know, you have a lot of different characteristics there in color and features, but, you know, we're looking at, you know, starting prices in the mid-3s here. And then the commercial out in front, working with Jeremy and Jonathan, we've had a 60-foot setback from the current 191st Street to allow for expansion of 191st Street. Obviously, the roundabout coming in on Grand Boulevard is something the development would put in. Obviously, subject to detailed negotiations with the city and long-term plans. Going north, the Suburban Rental community is truly a unique opportunity for Westfield and Indiana. This type of project was brought to me by a group out of Chicago who's done them in Arizona, Texas, and it's kind of a COVID accelerated type of housing. It's a single property owner, you know, full maintenance, you know, on-site leasing, not short-term leasing, minimum 1 year, and it's very expensive. This will approach $1.80 to $2 a square foot for rental. So while they may be smaller living units, 900 to 1,300 square feet, they're very expensive, and they're that for a reason. They have a lot of amenities. You'll see that lake on the northern part of it, just shy of the Robinson property. That lake is a master lake that I'm trying to create a huge amenity for the entire development. We'll try to drain there. The topo on this property, plus or minus 5 feet, so it's pretty flat. But the Suburban Rental would be managed and owned under one parcel, and the elevations you have there are just an example of it. And the ownership or development company fully understands that they have to comply with, you know, Westfield standards of architectural and Indiana coolness. So it's going to be a very nice product for our area. Then going north onto the Robinson property, what I'm envisioning there, and I can tell you, the mother of the Woods family and myself both will have lots in there. So this is going to be a very nice empty nester type product, you know, prefer 1 story, similar to one over in West Clay that David Weekley has done. And in West Clay, the prices range from $500,000 to $700,000. So we're going to take full advantage of the trail, 2 retention areas to create nice lake views and trail views. The townhomes are contemplated kind of in a little excess area, and this is subject to discussion with planning commissioners and council members, but it's a Lennar project similar to the one you see on 116th Street that sold out very quickly down in Fishers. So, you know, I like the 2-story. I'm not really sold on the 3 stories like Pulte had down on the Monon. Not convinced that's the right thing for this, but open for discussion. It is a big project. Fortunately, we have big time users for it already. I think we got, you know, the number 1 or number 2 largest private builder, David Weekley, in the country involved. So I think we have top caliber development team. I have not received any comments from the neighborhood meeting, and you know, I think in short, I think we're trying to hit everything we can. The general business zoning is something I requested, you know, to give me maximum flexibility, because I don't want to relive what I just did for the last year with COVID. And we have to be creative. We have to have some forethought. I think we're adding the right housing mix to the area, and I know we're adding something very cool next to Grand Park. So with that, Mike, would you like to add anything, or? Okay, if you have any questions for him, but with that, I think I'm here to have the public hearing and then answer the commissioner's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. This item does require a public hearing this evening. We'll open the public hearing on 2009 PUD-11 Woods Robinson Briggs PUD at 8:04 PM. We have any cards?
We have one person walking up right now, yes.
My name is Debbie Sturm. I live at 1312 East 191st Street. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of having a hard time wrapping my head around this. The only reason we weren't at the neighborhood meeting is that we weren't told that there was a neighborhood meeting. We didn't get any information on it. So I'm assuming this is like negating what was last year, right? With the telescope, that's,
Actually, you'll,
that's the
ma'am,
same property?
ma'am,
Is it?
you need to address the
Oh, I'm
counselors
sorry.
and then.
I'm
So
sorry.
You have 2.5 more minutes to address us, and then once the public hearing is closed, then Mr. Dalton will
Oh,
will
okay.
answer questions.
I'm sorry.
So, yes, thank you.
So it is not the same property we were talking about with the telescope? Am I just totally misunderstanding?
So what you need to do is lay out all of your questions
Oh, okay.
to us, and then Mr. Dalton and staff will answer at the end,
Okay.
okay? Is that your only question, or do you have more?
So my question is this property across the street from where I live on 191st Street, 1312, which would be south of 191st Street, west of Wheeler Road? Is that,
There's a map on the screen right now. It is not the same site as that Grand Universe project. This is on the north side of 191st Street.
okay, so then I have no questions then.
Okay.
Thank you so
Sorry,
much.
sorry for the confusion, ma'am. I was not trying to make it difficult for you.
No, it's okay. I've never addressed it before, so I had no clue what to do.
That's-
So thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Do we have any other cards, Ms. Howard?
We do not.
Anyone else here in the audience care to speak? Check the time. We'll give it just a little bit more to see if anyone sends an email.
Just want to make sure everyone did receive the email that came in at 6:48 from Kurt Ayler. You should have that in your inbox.
I do not have that, so I'm going to actually have, is it something you're able to read?
It's pretty long. He has a list of questions. I'm happy to read it if you'd like. I can start with the intro and then just.
It'll be entered into record.
It will be, yes, and it will be included on public comments. Correct, yes.
It'll be entered into the record, and I encourage all the commissioners to please make sure they read the public comments, as we always do. If there's nothing further, I will close this public hearing at 8:08 PM. First up, questions or comments will be Dr. Kelleher this time.
Randy, I'm having some technical difficulties, so I will send my comments in to staff so they can give them to Mr. Dalton.
Thank you.
Very good. Ms. Berkman, questions or comments?
Thank you. I've got a few questions on the residential portions that I'll send to staff just on just some different specification questions. Overall, though, I have more questions on this commercial side, which I'll also submit to staff. But again, this PUD is very broad, and while it talks about in the presentation doing a tennis center, I'm not sure that's really a guarantee in the PUD. And again, this is on that road frontage right across the street from Grand Park, and I just want to make sure that the council has an opportunity, if something like that didn't go in, that's a great compliment, which by the way, I love that idea, that we make sure the right thing does go in that spot. So I just overall have some questions on overall on this entire commercial area and what kind of Mr. Dalton sees as the businesses going in there. So I'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Please submit those in writing to the staff, please.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners who are present here this evening, questions or comments?
I'm going to have a number of them, and again, they will be in writing. All right.
I think it's a lot, but to wrap your head around, but I think, you know, it's got good bones, and with the concepts that you put forth, like with Cornerstone Church, I think that will look beautiful. I think the tennis complex will be a great complementary to Grant Park. I think it'll be a great hot spot for those that visit Grant Park to go there, as well as for those of us who are local to shop or eat, whatever the sort. I like in terms of the home concepts, we have to have something as a transition between Chatham Hills and the South. So I think what has been presented so far, I think that will be a nice complement to the North. I definitely like the idea of having a park there next to the Monon. I think that'll get great use for just anything in general. But yeah, I just wanted to share those comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Birch, I also put a lot of my comments in writing, but my big concern really is with that suburban rental, putting 350 rental homes in that area, and then trying to market the area immediately next to it, to the north of it, for high-end homes. I'm wondering if someone would spend $600,000 or $700,000 on a home, that it's abutting a rental community. So that's just from a marketing standpoint, got that question there. Little concerned with the trailhead. I think that's a wonderful idea, but we just kind of approved a trailhead just last year in your other development, which probably is only maybe 300-400 yards away from it. So question is, do we need two trailheads that close together? And then the only other comment I've got is that really in each one of the areas, we are really, I guess, minimizing the size of the lots, and we are modifying the UDO in all those areas to add additional homes and just smaller lots. And I know we need a transition from commercial to residential, but I'm wondering if that might not be too big of a transition. So just my thoughts.
May I address those three things?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, one, on the trailhead issue, it kind of answers some of the questions that people said. The Link PUD got killed as is right now because of COVID. If you look at the uses that were on there, the museum, the community center, each would have been closed down, at the same time I'm trying to build them. So the Link, was probably one of the toughest one to get hit by the COVID. And the trailhead there versus this one, I think you have north of 191st Street and south of 191st Street. And, with some of the consternation going on with the trails as far as carts and bikes and all that, all I can tell you is the Monon is killing it right now. As you know, I own the trails by the Grindstone Charlies and the new bridge. So the Monon's only going to grow. So to have two very nice stops along the way, one for Grant Park, one north of it, I don't think that hurts us as a community. I think it helps us. And to have connectivity to the trail, for this big a development, I think you got to have a way to get to the trail or you're not using the trail. As far as the suburban rental next to, my house, if you would, I'm the one taking the risk, putting the millions of dollars into this, and I think it works. The suburban rental, once you wrap your head around it and understand how expensive it is to live in these high-end single units, David Weekley builds these in other markets. They want to build this, and they're putting money next to it. So I think the marketing with the David Weekleys, Lennar, and these people, they've already convinced it makes sense. You know, they see it as an amenity and a stepping stone to a custom home or another home. And what was your third point? I lost it. Marketing and the trail. What was your?
Just the number of homes we're kind of forcing to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think, you know, what do you do in Westfield? I mean, people want to come here. You know, we got the geography, we got 31. We have a lot of reason to be in Westfield, and I think, you know, from all the other residential investors, from Steve Hinkie and you know, Paul Rio and myself, we see nothing but upside. This is really my first foray into residential. So I didn't come into this without, you know, spending a lot of time with the users. So I think we have the market. I think 191st Street, I'm a little late to the game, and I'm paying for it in land prices, but I think this is a great corridor for the future, and I think this kicks it off in a nice way. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Anybody else? Yeah, I'm looking at it, I've been looking at it, and I think that, I think it makes a transition as it goes north, as it should. The small lot, single family SF4 is tight, but coming off commercial, that's not atypical of any other place. Coming off of the commercial, I'm kind of interested in the new idea of the suburban rental community. It looks interesting, I think, with the proximity to the Monon, because you know the townhomes are on the Monon are popular and expensive. So I think that could be a nice transition up into the larger single-family homes up north. Can't say as I wouldn't like to see them further apart, but you got to maximize the land use. I get it. So what I really do like, I do like Trailhead. I like the park, and I like the church. I just think it's something nice to have just in that area. So it looks like a nice looking project. I'm not saying there aren't things, but as you work through those that come to you in writing, the staff, we'll kind of see how things transition from there.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Dalton.
Thank you.
Concludes the business on the agenda this evening. Mr. Todd or Ms. Howard, do you have anything else?
Nope, nothing from us this evening. Thanks.
Okay.
Good
Hearing
to see
none,
everybody.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
And Mike, yeah, my mic is back on. I have a motion made by Randall Graham, second by Mr. McCarty, to adjourn the meeting this evening. Will the staff please call the roll?
Dr. Kelleher? Dr. Kelleher? Yeah. Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljerick?
Yes.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you to everyone who's here and everyone who's virtually here. So it is good to be back.
Night, Randy.